Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema. Sit down. It's up on the screen. We ain't wasting no time today, man. I ain't got time to waste, as I said in my non-spoiler review. So why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat. We are getting ready to dive in spoiler-filled into the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 2, The Star-Spangled Man. And speaking of that non-spoiler, if you haven't watched the episode, don't dive into this one. Jump up there, check out that non-spoiler review where you will see me kind of rip on this episode a little bit and kind of point out that, like, maybe one of the flaws in the TV division with Kevin Feige right now is that, like, it feels like we're not getting enough. Like, right as I'm getting into the hooks of this episode, like, the episode's over, and when you're working in a miniseries, like I said in the non-spoiler, you gotta make sure that, like, you are giving good payoffs every episode, and every episode is really pushing the story forward. While I still think that point stands specifically for non-comic book fans, like, if you watch this episode, how much are you taking away from this episode if you don't know the deep cut comic stuff that gets littered throughout here? And I also did say, worth noting, that more than likely during the spoiler review I was going to have a lot to talk about, because even though these episodes seem too short, man, does Marvel cram it with so much good stuff, from its writing to its story progression of its characters, to, like, it's so good, that's why I want more. Like, I want to be feeling that full fulfillment on that first viewing, because at 3 o'clock in the morning I'm a little fuzzy and maybe a little bit closer to, like, just the person who's watching along or is a fan of the MCU and not the comic books, because my brain isn't firing on all cylinders. And I want the feeling that I get after I watch an episode the second time, after I watch it the first time. Maybe that's what I was really trying to get at in the non-spoiler, because when I watched this episode the second time, and we started diving into things that are going on, both from a storytelling perspective and from a comic book perspective, oh, there is some good stuff in this episode, man. Like, it's nuts. And again, I still feel like you could have taken the Flag Smasher storyline and the Captain America storyline that are present in this episode and dealt with those in the first episode. Give me 20 more minutes on the first episode, get me to an hour, deal with it there, and then I would have an hour to deal with what's left and dive more into what's there, specifically the stuff we get at the end of the episode. Like, the stuff at the end of the episode was the area I wanted to live in a little bit more. Oh, you could have done it, man. You could have done it. And that is more what my point is. But we're not here to have any kind of negativity, because we are going to dive into this bad boy. Top to the end, man. Top to bottom. There's the words. I've got notes. I've got pages of notes. It's crazy how much they pack into this show. So let's not waste any more time, man, and let's dive into it, and I'll tell you how much I'm enjoying it. And we open with this kind of quick scene with our Star-Spangled Man. We get a little bit of a background on the new Captain America. And I maybe should have mentioned this last week, but I guess it kind of slipped the brain. But this scene does confirm who this Captain America is, and that is John Walker. And in the comics, John Walker does take over the mantle of Captain America after Cap retires, and then when Cap comes out of retirement, this guy can't be Captain America, so he becomes the U.S. agent, which we could dive into in a separate day when we got not this much to talk about. But a nice confirmation from the comic book side that the guy who's replacing Captain America is a guy who replaced him in the comic books, and then went on to be his own thing, because they do turn him into a super soldier as well as his sidekick, who we also get to meet later on in the episode. Actually, we get to meet shortly in the episode, but we don't necessarily know that it's him until later on in the episode. But what we get is we get him returning to his high school alma mater. He's here on his Captain America tour. He gets interviewed at the end of this scene, and they mention, like, the tour, and it reminds you of the way they toured Captain America in First Avenger. Like, that's what they're doing, man. They're setting the brand. They're taking him all over the place, and if you're gonna take him anywhere, take him back to his hometown. So you're getting the nostalgia vibes in the locker room. Like, clearly he must have been a football player. Then his girlfriend comes in and kind of gives him a little support, because he can feel the weight of this. And it's one of those things that I like getting to see John Walker, the person, because last week he was an imposter, in reality, it's a real person in there. Maybe he's a good guy. Maybe he did the work to earn this, even though we know it's Sam's shield at this point because Cap gave it to him. Like, we don't know anything about this guy, so we get a little bit of, like, he's feeling it, man. You can tell he's nervous, and he's definitely feeling the pressure of having to be something that he might not be. So his girlfriend comes in and reassures him a little bit, and she walks out. His best friend comes in, gives him the another buck up type bit, and then he runs out there as Captain America onto the football field. And you got the marching band playing the music, and everybody's cheering, and he's signing autographs and stuff. And then he runs up onto a stage, does an in-person interview where he kind of talks about the honor and the privilege of getting to carry this, and not knowing if he's deserved it, and that tease up the anchor to be like, not deserving, like 3 medals of honor, led multiple different anti-terrorism missions throughout his career in the military to this point. When it came to the testing, tested the top of his class in speed and agility and reaction, and you see him training with the shield and throwing it like Cap, and it's bouncing all over the place, and you're like, guy looks like he could be Captain America. Like, when you see him in action, you're like, okay, maybe he fits the bill a little bit more than we thought. And I dug getting that in this scene. But what I really dug about this scene is all the stuff that's going on that's not that, right? Like, who this guy is, where he comes from. We were able to pick up a lot on just where we are location-wise and what's happening. We're in a high school. Big football day, so clearly you're in a town where football is big. Like, the entire town seems to be in the stands for this. Maybe it's because Captain America's there. It's it's a big football town. You also have this marching band going on. And this marching band is predominantly filled with black kids, and it gives you the vibe. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Drumline, which kind of gets into the drumline culture, but the marching band culture in big time Southern schools. Like, some of these maybe not D1 athlete school or sports schools, D1 on the music side, man, where the marching band is what it's all about. And you're seeing them have a grand old time, and they're twirling the things, and all that stuff that you would have seen in that movie Drumline with Nick Cannon. It's the type of vibe and spectacle you're getting here, and if you know anything about that, it's a big tie to the South, and specifically black culture in the South. You go to these schools where, black representation is almost the majority, specifically in high schools and some of your bigger colleges, like Georgia, not Georgia Tech, but like one of those tech, like the tech school that's in Drumline. This is what, that vibe is. And you can tell, like I said, the whole marching band, for the most part, is black kids. There's, you see a couple white dancers and maybe a Hispanic kid here or there, but like, predominant feel, black kids. Same in the stands. While there's a bigger mixture there, because you have all the families of the people who are at this school, the mass majority of people that we see in the stands are black people. So it just calls out to the fact that this is probably a school somewhere in the South, where a marching band or a drum line would be really, really important, and where football would probably be really, really important. And what's weird about that is, like, typically in those schools, your quarterback, so to speak, would probably also be a black kid. And I mean, you see black quarterbacks everywhere, at this point. It's a much more common thing, but a deep-rooted conversation within football in and of itself is this idea of the white quarterback and the black quarterback, and the stereotypical feelings toward the black quarterback of being athletic, more about their reflexes and their agility and what they're able to do just physically, whereas the white quarterback has got the brains and the smarts and is the guy that'll win you the championship. And at a school like this, a white quarterback would kind of stick out like a sore thumb. Based on everything we see with John Walker, seems to be the mold of that classic white quarterback that would have been there. Kind of would have stuck out, maybe like a little bit of a sore thumb, even though he's friends with all these people, and he clearly was very good as a quarterback. Much to the same way he sticks out as a sore thumb as Captain America, even if he maybe did earn that spot himself and earned that spot or took that spot from a black man. It is crazy. And like, just in setting it there, all those conversations are going on in this scene without you really fully thinking about it in the process. It's just like the back of your mind, your subconscious is picking up on all these things and piecing them together, and that's playing into the overall conversation that we're having with race here, and it'll play even more so as we move on. But you're kind of getting this guy who could be the center of all that types of conversation when he was in high school, now getting that same type of conversation maybe in some places with what's going on here as he becomes Captain America. Very interesting to see that's how they teed all of that up. And then on the back end of that, that scene, we see Bucky watching this interview on TV, and Sebastian Stan, man, is just killing it right here, man. The acting that he's doing in his eyes, everything that he's showing and telling us through his eyes, there's so much there, man. You can just see, like, he is grinding, and you hear John Walker go, like, never met Captain America, looked up to him, always wanted to be like him, I got guts like Captain America, man, and, I never met him, I didn't know him, but I feel like he's my brother. You got the guy who was actually his, not biologically, but, like, was his brother, his right-hand man, his best friend, sitting there going, this guy, man, like, you're not the guy. And that also talks to the sport conversation that we see a lot now, where you have these young kids who are just wildly more athletic because as human beings, we, kind of genetically makeup-wise have evolved. And, there's a lot more density to people's muscles, and, like, people in general are just able to do things that they weren't able to do, back in the day. From the time that kids start, focusing on a sport or working out or strengthening their bodies, like, you can just do more. But just because you can do more doesn't mean that you're better than, or that you are this guy. This conversation happens all the time with me when it comes to Michael Jordan and LeBron James, right? Like, I am not a LeBron James guy. I'm a Michael Jordan guy. And yes, I understand that LeBron is bigger and he's faster and he can physically do more things. But just because he can do all that and he's won titles doesn't mean he's Michael Jordan. And that's the vibe that you're getting here, where it's like, this guy, John Walker, maybe has all the capabilities to be Captain America. Like what we said, he tested at the top of his class, and, 3 Medals of Honor and all these different tours. But just because he's got all of the assets, and maybe he did more, got more records than Cap did, doesn't make him Captain America. And that's the look that you get out of Sebastian Stan. And what's crazy is we tie that in and actually have Stan say it to that guy's face later on in the episode. And that's the genius with the writing that's going on in this show, man. Like, I may have felt a little shortchanged or felt like you could have gotten more out of these 2 episodes, but what they have given us, very, very good. And from Bucky, we then jump to our boy, Mr. Sam, and he's getting ready for his next mission. And what's he dealing with? Giant poster, John Walker, the new Captain America. You see him all over the air hangar that they're in. And, you again, a lot of facial acting. Not necessarily us having to hear or be told it, but you can see, like, Sam is just like, God, man, like, that's not supposed to be this guy. This isn't even supposed to be happening. Like, we're just supposed to be going about our day, focusing on our business. And that's the vibe that you get from Sam, whereas Bucky is more like, that guy's not, like, that guy doesn't deserve to be Captain America. Like, that's not where the shield was supposed to go. And then you have a straight out conversation between the two that give you both of those standpoints. As Bucky shows up out of nowhere to call Sam out, who just wants to go focus on the mission. Why'd you give up the shield? And Sam's like, I'm not doing this right now, man. Like, I got bigger things to take care of. And Bucky's like, what is bigger than this? What could possibly be more important than you giving up the shield, and now this jabroni's got it? And, it's why you got that from Bucky. Sam's just like, man, we got these Flag Smasher guys, and I gotta go do this stuff. And, like, I don't need this when I should be focusing on this. And you kind of just get this little back and forth between the two of them, and I love Mackie and Stan so much, man. Their chemistry is so good, and just their back and forth banter with each other is fantastic. Like, I could watch a whole episode where the two of them just sit on a plane and go back and forth to each other. Although I would probably tell you that I want a little bit more than just that in these, because we only got 6. If we had like 12 episodes, you could give me a whole episode like that, and I would sit and watch it, man, because they're so good on camera together. But he's like, look, dude, what's bigger than this right now? We got this, terrorist group that, like, is legitimately causing damage, and we've got some intel. Torres, we see Joaquin Torres show up again, gives Sam a little bit of intel. He's also on the plane with him. But really just kind of more of a, like, hey, he's still involved, just not in the episode. But Sam's basically, we got some tips. Red Wing went and did some scouting. Bucky's like, I hate Red Wing, man. Like, I can't trust that thing. He's like, I don't care if you trust it. Red Wing got good intel. We need to go check this stuff out right now, because I'm pretty sure that these guys are tied to one of the big 3. And I started to smile before they even said it, because if you followed our WandaVision coverage, we talked about, like, the science and magical villains, but then there's, like, that third area you could go, which, like, seems to be space and aliens, and the minute he said big 3, I was like, are they gonna say it out loud, like, in the MCU? And Bucky's like, what are you talking about? He's like, big 3, man, androids, aliens, and wizards. And I laughed out loud. I was like, they just said it. Like, point blank, man. We got a science villain, androids. We got a magic villain, wizards. And then you got what's up in space, man, aliens. I loved all that. But Buggy's like, that's just ridiculous, man. Like, there are no wizards. Like, it's, Sam's like, dude, every time we fight something, is one of those 3. And he's like, Sam's like, Doctor Strange. He's like, he's a sorcerer. And Sam's like, yeah, sorcerer is just a wizard without the hat, man. Like, and they have a whole Gandalf conversation, which is great, because Sam's like, what do you know about Gandalf? And Buggy's like, bro, I read Lord of the Rings in 1937 when it came out in a book. Like, I'm that old, man. Like, I love seeing our superheroes having a nerdy conversation inside of a superhero show. Like, that was amazing, because these guys do and things that you don't they're specimens. You don't typically think in your head specimen when you think nerd. So to highlight the fact that, like, yeah, man, you can have guys that are superheroes, but they're also nerds. I loved that stuff. But like, basically all Sam's point is like, I don't know how, but they're probably gonna tie into one of these big 3. And if that's the case, like, that's Avengers level stuff then. So we should be checking this stuff out. So Bucky's like, fine, I'm coming with you. And Sam's like, no, you're not. And Bucky just comes on with, to the point where, like, they're on the plane and Torres walks by and tells Sam, like, countdown to whatever they're doing is like when, and just keeps moving. Bucky starts talking to Sam. Sam won't answer nothing. You're like, what's your plan? What are we doing here? And then, like, Sam gets up, and then Bucky gets up after, like, just having sat down, like, trying to follow him along. And to his point, he's like, dude, like, that's the problem right now, Sam. Like Cap would have a plan. Like, we'd be going in, and Sam's like, I have a plan. You're just not part of it, man. Enjoy the ride. He calls him Buck. And Bucky's like, you can't call me Buck. Cap called me Buck. He's like, yeah. He's like, Cap call you Buck? I'm going to call you Buck. He's like, no, me and Cap go way back. And Cap would have a plan right now. Sam's like, whatever. Out he goes. And Bucky comes up to Torres. He's like, where's the chutes? Torres is like, we're 200 feet in the air, man. This is too low for chutes. But he's like, wouldn't need it anyway. Rips his sleeve off and then just jumps out the plane. Torres' face, too, when he jumps out. It's like, you sure that's a good idea? And then you watch as Bucky just, like, tries to grab trees, crashes into the ground, and then that little Red Wing that he hates just hovering over him and can project Sam's voice. Sam's like, I got every frame of that on camera right now, man. Like, that's on video, recorded forever. And Bucky takes a swipe. He's like, don't mess with Red Wing, man. And, like, just the protectiveness and, like, the relationship that Sam has with Red Wing. To see it actually on screen being portrayed, like, this give and take type of a relationship, where, like, as they get together, and then head toward this warehouse that they're going to, you see, like, Red Wing come in and kind of scan the whole thing, gives Sam, like, in his glasses and on his arm, like, what he can see and whatnot. And, him and Bucky have some nice back and forth. Like I said, I love Stan and Mackie. They're so good. And just, they're going back and forth about the fact that, like, Bucky's just ready to go. Like, what are we waiting for? Like, let's get going. And Sam's like, dude, like, like, just take your time. And Bucky's like, I got a vibranium arm, man. I'm just going. And you see him, like, stealthily go to, like, set up to, like, spring on these two guys that we can see in the background, like, loading stuff into a truck. And Sam, like, kind of sneaks up behind him. He's like, man, stealth mode over here. Like, what, one vacation in Wakanda, and all of a sudden you're the White Panther? And he's like, White Wolf, sir. It's actually White Wolf. Get it right. And I was like, oh, that's a great reference to the White Wolf that we saw when he's referenced as White Wolf in the end. I think it's the end of Civil War, where we see him in Wakanda, which is a nod and reference to the White Wolf moniker that he held in Wakanda at, when Bucky was there. Again, you can go down so many rabbit holes. But he's, anyway, so he kind of makes that joke about being stealth. But he's like, whatever, man, I'm ready to go. He's like, can you just slow down? And he's like, you keep talking about the vibranium arm. He's like, I got wings. None of that matters right now. I want to see where they're going. We need to know what the next move is. And Bucky's just like, fine, man, but, like, there's just two guys. And he's like, just two guys? Why don't we see what Red Wing sees? And Bucky immediately gets kind of frustrated, and then we see what Red Wing sees. You see there's 7 dudes. So they're like, okay, so now we're going to wait. We see him loading, and then you can see that there's one person inside the truck. And Sam just goes, and I'm seeing an 8th. We might have a hostage. And as the trucks pull out, Bucky's off and running, man, and you get that, like, super cool, like, dude running and catching up to these trucks. I'm not sure exactly how they shot it or how much of it was CG this time, but very reminiscent of the same type of thing we saw in Civil War, where him and Cap are just running way faster than the traffic that's moving, and the way they shot that, they like, had a mat that was attached to a car that was pulling him, and then they looked like they were running faster than everything. Just a really nice nod back to that. You saw him get up, gets into the truck right away. Nobody's even messing with him. Finds the hostage. He's like, Sam, I've got the hostage. Right now, everything's copacetic. And he turns to go to the hostage, and we know immediately that is not a hostage. As soon as you see that curly red hair, we're like, that's that girl who had the mask on last time. Like, she's with the Flag Smashers. And as he's, like, trying to make sure she's okay, all of a sudden this big grin comes across her face, kicks him right in the chest. He goes, flying, man. Not just one Flag Smasher super soldier, but apparently everybody that's in the Flag Smashers is a super soldier. And this chick, man, kicks Winter Soldier. He flies into the windshield of the truck behind him. He, like, grabs on with his vibranium arm, and then two guys, some truck driver in the back must have buzzed the guys that were in that truck, like, there's a dude in the other truck, get on top of this one, so in case he lands on our truck, you can pull him up. Two guys are there, they pull him up. Winter Soldier starts fighting or whatever, and, you see the girl put her mask on. She jumps up onto the truck, and outnumbered by super soldiers, Bucky's in a little bit of trouble. And who comes in to help out? But Red Wing starts shooting at the girl. She just runs, jumps up, grabs him, breaks him over her knee, and you see Bucky being held by these two guys go, I've always wanted to do that. And then Sam comes flying in looking awesome with the wings, kicks her, knocks her down, starts to help out, Bucky or whatever. And you see them going back and forth. All of a sudden there are other guys on I think Bucky gets tossed over to a different... I think she grabs Falcon and throws him to, like, the other truck, like, which is crazy. And, like, two guys catch him, and they're all fighting, and they're in a bad way. And you're like, shoot, man, there are way too many super soldiers and just the two of them. And all of a sudden... boom, hitting one of those people is the shield. And, like, it's so weird because we've been trained at this point when that image and that shield comes flying out of nowhere to get excited, and you're about to, like, get excited, but then, like, as you're getting up for it, and, like, they're playing the Captain America music, like, underneath all of this, you're like, ooh, this is a fake Captain America, damn it, like, where'd he come from, why is he here? He jumps down, like, throws, like, the shield, like, 3-4 times, and then literally out loud to Sam goes, Sam, John Walker, Captain America, like, nice to meet you. And like, we're in the middle of a fight right now, dude. And then, like, all of a sudden you see this other guy come swooping down, kicks a guy off the trucks and lands. And, that guy is like, hey, yeah, Lamar Hoskins here. And, like, same thing, like, introduces himself. And, like, first off, you're like, one, we're doing introductions on the top of two moving trucks while a fight is going on. That doesn't seem right. Two, the sidekick never introduces himself. Like, and you're the sidekick. I don't need to know your name. And then you just have this dichotomy, right? Like, you got a white guy, black guy. And in this scenario, you have, like, the white guy is Cap, black guy is the sidekick. On the other side, you have the black guy who seems to be like the main guy. I mean, he's the first build in the show, at least, in the Falcon, and was the guy who was supposed to be Captain America. And then, the white guy is the sidekick, except the difference here is that the Winter Soldier and the Falcon, because neither one of them is Captain America, kind of feel like equals. Whereas, like, once that shield is on you, fake Cap, regular Cap, Sam Cap, whatever, the guy next to the shield is the sidekick. And that was just like right away I was like, you don't introduce yourself, you're the sidekick. And then you kind of see this dichotomy of like, oh, you've got the same pairing, except, you got the white Captain America and the guy who should have been Captain America is the black guy on the other side. But because he's not Captain America, him and Bucky don't feel like leader, sidekick, they feel like equals. Really, really interesting stuff. Again, like so many things that are just going off of visuals or things that are happening that aren't being said out loud that are like layering this show. There are so many layers to this show. But naturally, like while introductions are going on, it's like there's still like 5 dudes up here that are all super soldiers. And, fight breaks out. Bucky gets knocked off. You see him like claw grab down and like hang on for dear life. Sam gets kicked like off the truck and does like a crazy swoop move. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. Sam jumps up before an exit sign as the guy is chasing him, kind of does one of these, his wings blow him back, thinking that it's going to knock this dude off the truck, and that dude just barrels right through it because super soldier serum. And then later on, like after Sam gets pulled back down, he gets knocked off and does again, like the wings just immediately come out and does this crazy cool swoop move. And then you have, Walker and Lamar Hoskins on top, like fighting, and you see Hoskins gets knocked off. And as he's flying, you see Walker throw the shield, lands under Hoskins, who slides to and he just has this cheesy smile, like, way to go, man. And it's like you're playing up like the cheesy element of like what a Captain America show might look like, with these two, poser characters. Like you kind of have that as Walker tries to get back up. Bucky or Sam is down by Winter Soldier, and he's like, man, that little girl kicked the crap out of you, huh? They had that nice back and forth we saw in the trailer, and then Sam's like, okay, I'm going to save your life, swoops under the truck, grabs him, they kind of roll off. As Walker gets back up on top, same thing, much like Bucky, he gets kicked in the chest, flies into the windshield of a regular car, bounces and rolls off of that, and the trucks take off. And you're just like, bad guys get away, none of the good guys win, and Bucky and Falcon are just walking down the road, giving each other crap for everything that just went down. And they're like, Sam's like, in all seriousness, like, we got 8 super soldiers. What do we do with that? And as they're trying to figure that out, here comes this military vehicle, and who's in the back seat but Lamar Hoskins and John Walker. And, they kind of pull up and stop, and John's like, hey, man, like, that didn't go the way we thought it was going to go, huh? And in my head, I was like, please just don't even acknowledge it. And sure enough, the 2 guys just keep walking like he didn't pull up, to the point where you hear Walker go, just keep going, man. Like, just keep going. Oh, and the other thing, too, that I didn't note during that fight sequence, the other thing that kind of felt off about Captain America, but would feel in line with a soldier, he pulls out a gun and takes a shot at one of these guys after Hoskins gets knocked off and he saves him. He doesn't have the shield, so he pulls the gun out. And it just felt weird to watch a guy in the caps shoot a gun. Like, just all the little things that make him feel off. And there's more to come as we go through the episode, but I forgot to point that out. And that definitely worth noting. Like, shooting the gun definitely threw me off a little bit. But makes sense to who his character is, because he comes, from war and the military, and that's commonplace to be shooting at the bad guys. Just not something that Captain America should be doing. So the guys are walking or whatever, and you have Walker is just like, you keep it going. And as they come up, he's like, look, we think this is attached to one of the big 3, right? Like, it's either, and you hear Hoskins go, androids, aliens, or wizards. And, immediately they shoot to, like, Bucky and Sam, and Bucky's like, there's no such thing as wizards. And Walker takes that, rather than the joke that you got with Sam and Bucky, to be, okay, so then it's either androids or aliens. And then Sam is like, we're super soldiers. And that, again, speaks to that big 3 that I had talked about during WandaVision, where it's like, okay, yeah, here you've got androids, aliens, wizards, magic, androids, science. And if it's a science villain, then you can add in things like super soldiers and whatever. So it's still the big 3. It's just science, magic, and space. is the way I kind of look at it. But anywho, they're like, it's the big three, and if it's super soldiers, then we should work together. And Bucky's like, look, man, just because you've got the cap, like, shield, doesn't mean that you're him, man, that you're Captain America. And, you know, again, kind of speaking to that, like, these young athletes and things in, like, sports, like, taking over the legends. Like, yeah, you might have all the attributes and all the things, but you're not the guy. And to that, Walker is like, dude, I've put in all the work. Like, I've done everything I needed to do to be this guy. And Bucky's like, you ever jump on a grenade? And he's like, as a matter of fact, 3. It's like a little thing I do with my helmet. It's a reinforced helmet. And, like, just that stuff. Like, it's the things that irritate me when people who are about that, like, new generation of athletes in the world of sports, and I'm such an old school guy. Like, that's the thing that grinds my gear. Like, no, you don't understand what it means to jump on a grenade. Like, you did it 3 times. Like, Cap didn't have a helmet to put on it, man. Like, he dove on it. Like, you're missing the point. Like, just because you do it doesn't mean it's the thing. And I just love the entire back and forth. But that basically, they end up hopping into the ride because, you know, Walker is just like, look, you guys can dislike us all you want. The airport's another 20 miles. Like, you're gonna want to ride, so why don't you get in? And once they get in, you know, that they start to kind of go through, and Sam is talking about how, like, the Flag Smashers are you know, these people who want the world to go back to the way it was right after the blip. Like, no borders, no nations, like, the whole world trying to fix itself. Like, maybe they're trying to help. And, you know, what you found out when Bucky first gets into the truck is, like, those trucks are filled with medicines and vaccines. So maybe if their whole idea is to get back to the way that things were right after the blip happened, maybe that's what they're doing. They're trying to go out there and help people. And even Bucky's like, yeah, sure, an interesting way to show that you're helping. You know, Sam's like, you know, more importantly, how did you track them so that we can figure out how wherever they're going? And they're like, oh, well, we didn't track them, we tracked you through Red Wing. He's like, you hacked my tech. And again, the little bits that we get with Walker really tell a lot about the character. And he's like, I mean, we didn't hack anything. Like, that's government property. And, like, hello, government. Like, we just followed our own tech to find out where you guys were. And then even to the point where, like, he mentions the GRC, you know, which Sam refers to as the global representation or something. I don't know how to say the word right. But basically, again, like, you get Walker referencing it as the GRC, kind of tells you he's an inside man. He's part of the government. Sam giving it its full name, I'm on the outside of the government. And you do have, again, something that plays in later where it's like, government, not the government. That's why we're not going to team up, because we can do stuff that you guys can't do. And just all these things being layered in to give you payoffs later on. I just pick up and love all of those little things there. You know, but we get that. Like, the you know, basically the government has to, like, you know, come up with new social securities, you know, new insurance, you know, legalizing all of these new citizens, you know, and basically they're just trying to maintain some kind of order as people who are being displaced by the return. Like, you're dealing with everything that happened, the world kind of settled, and now people have shown back up and are taking the spots of people who were, you know, settling in different places. And Sam's like, I get that this group does all of that, but what has that got to do with you two? And like, well, they provide the resources, we keep things stable. And to be honest, we got a lot of resources, man. Like, you join up with us, and we'd be good. And Bucky's just kind of like, yeah, but wait, who are you? You know, and it's like Lamar Hoskins. It's like, everything that just happened, you're going to have to give me more than Lamar Hoskins, guy. And he's like, you know, they call me Battlestar. And Bucky hears Battlestar, he's just like, I'm done. I've had enough of this. Like, pull over. He gets up, and Sam trying to give him, like, a little bit of leeway still. Like, maybe we should work together. You know, and you just have Walker going like, dude, it's tough enough trying to do this job. Like, it would be a lot easier to be Captain America if I had Captain America's wingmen. And Sam's just like, you know, it's always that last line, dude. And, like, just gets up and pieces out. Like, I've had enough of this. And Walker is just like, whatever, you know, like, take off. Let's just get going. And you see Sam and Bucky walking off to I guess probably the airport to go wherever they gotta go. And then we jump to the Flag Smashers, and they got this little hideout that they're hiding in after stealing all this stuff. And you find out that it's just some regular local guy and his wife put together this whole little room, like made them all this fresh food, and then literally built them like a hideout. Like it's got multiple desks that have computers and give them the ability to do the things they need. He's like, everything in here is clean, like we cleaned it up. He's like, people love you guys, man. Like you guys are like, they call you Robin Hood, so like anywhere you go, you will find support like this out here, at least in Europe, because like what you're doing, what you're standing for, people are getting behind. And it's one of those ideas, again, like when you're talking about these terrorist groups and how they function and how they get people in, is they find or take advantage or capitalize on a situation or a moment. So here it is, like, man, all these people are upset because the blip got fixed and now there's all these people here and we liked it the way things were. That's what we're going to do, man. We're trying to get things back to where it was, so there are no more nations and red tape and flags and all of these things. We're going to get rid of it. And people buy into that because all the people who were here after the snap happened, they can get behind those things. So you're seeing this group work very much the way that some terrorist groups really do work. They try to make you sympathize and empathize with them and understand where they're coming from. And on paper, maybe what they think they stand for or say they stand for doesn't seem that bad, but the way they go about things is. And I love just getting that taste of like the people are behind this group. That makes them very dangerous and very scary. Now, with that being said, one of the guys jumps right onto the computer, and he's like, "Oh man, they've already got our aliases. I'm working on wiping everything." And we get to see a name, and the name that we get to see gets brought up later on in the episode toward the end, where they bring up the redhead, curly-haired girl's name. But you see it here, and her name is Carly Morgenthau. And what's funny is Flag Smasher in the comics was an actual person who kind of represented a group that was pushing similar things to what the Flag Smashers are doing here in the show. But that person's name was Carl Morgenthau. So you gender change that character and now give it Carly. You still have Carl in there. Really wonderful nod to the actual Flag Smasher character. And you set up Carly Morgenthau to be the leader. That guy that beat the crap out of Torres, he's not their leader. It's Carly. That's a really cool twist and something that I really dug. Like, Flag Smasher was a character. We're not just using it as like a moniker for this whole group, but there is an actual Flag Smasher. And rooted in the comics, just gender change. That's all, and that's cool. Maybe it's maybe there is a Carl. Maybe her dad's name is Carl, and he was like a politician or like a diplomat's kid. So like traveled all over the world, came from money. It'd be interesting to see if they give those things to Carly, and that would be how she's funding this group, how she could get something like this off the ground. It'd be interesting to see how much of the Carl Morgenthau story or background of like where he comes from as a character gets put into Carly. That could help build out this whole Flag Smasher organization. So seeing her last name revealed while this guy's wiping all of their aliases out of databases was kind of a cool thing. You also see her get a text message that says, "You took what was mine. I'm going to come find you and kill you." Clearly, I'm thinking that whoever texted that either is someone tied to all of the medical supplies that they just took. Maybe someone tied to the money or whatnot that they stole last time. Maybe it's the person who actually had the super soldier serum this time around. Maybe it's a Hydra agent. Who knows? There is somebody, though, that is going to be coming after this girl, besides just all the good guys that are coming after them. So I thought that was a really interesting tidbit. And then the one other thing that I do like, too, is as they're kind of having this conversation, one of the guys in the room goes, "Could you have believed that someone would be so behind the cause the way this guy was 6 months ago?" And again, that's just kind of like 6 months from the return of everybody happening is where we are. And it, again, plays into that idea, like the whole reason that we have movement and traction right now for this group is because people can get behind what we're doing. And the way they're kind of utilizing a situation to help themselves along and get the help of the people. Like everywhere they go, you're going to see kind of love like that. Like I said, like the guy calls him Robin Hood, and people would always be on the lookout to kind of help Robin Hood. So I dug all that stuff. And then we jump back to Bucky and Sam, and Buck is just like, we should steal the shield back, man. Like, you could tell he's just caught up on this fake Captain America, and like, we need to just stop that. And Sam is totally stuck on like, we've got real things to worry about. Can we worry about some white guy being Captain America, or just some guy who's not Steve being Captain America at a different time? Like, he immediately goes to me, he's like, I mean, just think of it this way. What happened last time we stole the shield? And we get our first reference to Sharon Carter. He's like, Sharon ended up being labeled an enemy of the state. Me and Steve ended up on the run for 2 years. And that, of course, like, you forget, like, Civil War, Sharon brings them their gear. Like, she had to steal the shield and the wings to give them to, like, you kind of forget that. So it'll be interesting to see where she comes in. You see she's kind of, incognito, hooded up, like, trying to be stealthy in and of herself, because maybe she still is an enemy of the state. But like that, like, we don't need to do that. We got to focus on the fact that there are super soldiers, man, and like, that's the biggest piece that we took away from all this, is we got super soldiers. And Buck's like, well, we did learn one other thing, man. He's like, I need you to meet somebody. And we go to Baltimore, Maryland. And this is where I was saying, like, remember, like, you could have taken some of that Flag Smasher and that Cap stuff and probably gotten it in episode 1, so we could have spent some more time in some other places. This particular story is one of those places I would like to have spent more time in and digesting, because of how much it can mean to the character of Sam. But we get a big old comic book reveal that I don't think too many people are going to pick up on just in watching what was going on. But we see them go to Baltimore, and they go up to this house. Bucky knocks on the door, asks for a man named Isiah. Kid at the door is like, no man named Isiah lives here. And Bucky's like, tell him, like, it's guy you met at this particular bar at, like, this one place. It's like, you say that, he'll know what's going on. Kid goes in, comes back, and is like, all right, worked. He knows you. He wants to see you. Comes in, you walk in, and we're seeing camera shot behind this guy. You can see his head. And you see, this black man, got gray hair. And you see the two come in, and, Bucky says, hi to Isiah or whatever. And we are meeting, in this moment, Isiah Bradley. Now, Isiah Bradley in the comic books is the first black Captain America. Basically, in the storyline that's given to him in the comic books, Bradley is one of a group of people that were experimented on. Following Cap, the super serum, the super soldier serum was a big thing. You had someone from America trying to recreate it, someone from Germany trying to recreate it. And the guy who was doing it for America primarily used black men as his experimental, mice, so to speak. And many of them died just from the experiments. I think 8 make it out, and then through doing different missions or whatever, the only person who survives all of this is Isiah Bradley. And part of the super soldier group that was made to kind of go do missions in Europe or whatever, he ends up getting captured. And while he's captured, they experiment on him. They're trying to reverse engineer, the serum. And eventually he's I think, rescued by German insurgents or whatever. And he gets rescued just to simply be, like, dishonorably discharged, man. Like, they throw him in prison in Leavenworth for, like, 20 plus years or whatever, until, like, Eisenhower, like, gives him a pardon. But in the world of the comics, like, that final mission that leads to his capture, he ends up, like, putting on all the Captain America gear and saving the day or whatever, and then gets captured and then ends up in prison for all this time or whatever. But, it was a character who pretty much was able to be wiped away from the history books. And inside the Marvel comic universe, black characters know who he is, and that name means something. Non-black characters do not know that. There's a storyline, I think, where Cap brings him back for maybe like when he's retiring or something like that, and like you see people like Falcon and Black Panther and Monica Rambeau like in awe of this man, and Wolverine, no clue who he is. And very much, even within the comics, like I would think few people outside of like diehard comic book fans and you know the black community would know that Isiah Bradley was Captain America. And to have that inserted in here, and to have all that history be what is distributed to us or given to us, was so cool to see, man. Like, you see him and he sits there and he tells you this story about like who he is, and like, you know, the fact that like I was a hero, man. You know, like the reason I know him is they threw me behind enemy lines. You know, like we knew he was someplace, and every time someone would go looking for him, they wouldn't come back. So they sent me. He's like, I ripped off half that man's arm. The whole reason I let him in here was to see if he got that arm back. I see you grew it back. And you know, it was either see that or see if you were going to kill me. And Bucky's like, I'm not a killer anymore. He's like, you don't get to just decide what you are. Like, you know, you did things. And what you did is what you did. You gotta live with that, man. And he's like, the things I did, things I made to be a hero, you know, the things that made me me. What did I get for being a hero? They threw me in prison, you know, for 20 plus years. They just kind of rot. And then I come out, and what am I? You know, I'm a nobody. Nobody knows who I am. I have no legacy. There's no this Captain America, and he doesn't say that really. In this format, it doesn't seem like anyone ever called him Captain America, even though he, to a degree, was, right. So you have all of that taken away, and that's something, again, plays right into Sam's story and to the overall story that they're dealing with as far as it goes to race, and the fact that, like, even in history, you had people who were inventors or who did these miraculous milestone type things, and either their names just seem to disappear or those things get kind of replaced to like a white person. And here you see it through this character that exists in the comics, and you put him into the MCU world and you give him that comic accurate background. And we've talked about this multiple times, but it does seem like they're building to a Young Avengers. If you're building to a Young Avengers, the leader of the Young Avengers is Elijah Bradley, who is Isiah Bradley's grandson. And the kid who opens that door could be Elijah Bradley. I'm just saying, that's what was there. Totally would play, and would seem to play into some of the stuff that we've seen Marvel to be building here. And like, you just get this wonderful scene that, again, is whatever it is on the surface, but behind it, so many layers, especially when you know the comic book stuff. And that's one of those things where it's like, for someone like me, I see that, I geek out. To the common viewer, you're taking away, okay, here's a super soldier. Like, super soldiers outside of Cap existed, and outside of Cap and Bucky, like, must have existed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But, like, does that hit the way that it would a comic book fan? That's one of those things I think the show could do a little bit better with. One of the reasons I would have liked some of the stuff in this episode to be in that first episode, so you'd have more time to maybe give us a flashback to show, you know, Isiah, you know, doing work, and being played here by Carl Lumbly, who does a wonderful job in the like minute to 2 minutes that they're given. Like, a very, very powerful moment. Just hearing that story, and it ends with him like grabbing, you know, something off the table and throwing it, and you see the force, and you're like, yeah, if you didn't think it was that guy before, you definitely know it's him now. And he basically tells him to get out, kicks him out of the house, and they both leave. And again, it's one of these things that's like, you've had, you know, Bucky kind of caught up in the whole giving up the mantle thing, and you kind of get to see that representation from the comic books of like black characters who respected and looked up to Isiah Bradley, reflected in Sam's kind of anger at the moment, right? Like, he's like, how could no, like, there was a black super soldier and nobody knew? Like, did Steve know? And Buck's like, I didn't tell Steve, man, because he didn't need to know. And like, Isaiah's been through enough as it is. Like, I want that story. Like, I wish we could have spent time to go back and see, like, how he interacted with him at all, or how much of the two of each other they knew. Like, how does Bucky have all of the like, know all of this stuff when he was, with the, like, all of that is just interesting. I wish we could have spent more time on it, and more time to drive home that's who that is and what that means. And it's funny because you see Sam just kind of looking at the, like, this is a piece of history that's been erased, when, like, right in his own backyard, it's like, if you would have picked up the shield, like, you would be that legacy as well. Like, it's interesting where, like, that first episode, it's more about, like, this is Cap's shield and his legacy, and I want to be my own thing, to where, like, that look Brody gave him was like, yeah, but you could have been, like, the Black Captain America. And then you insert the first Black Captain America into the show and wipe that history away, and that's the thing that hits Sam. Like, it's really, really interesting how you're seeing these characters deal with things, and, like, the fact that, like, gee, like, how does that stay secret, and how criminal that is. And that just speaks to Black history that's been washed away and had to, have people fight to have it restored. Really, really wonderful comic book nod, and just wonderful moment that really drives the story and these characters forward. And those are the types of things where it's like, I wish we could have gotten, like, more of that. And as you see the two of them arguing in the streets, red and blues, whoop, 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 cops pull up, and you're like, oh no, you can already see where this is going. Cop gets out, two white cops get out, and they immediately start to escalate the situation. Rather than de-escalate what's going on between Bucky and Sam, they're escalating it, because it's like, is everything here? Is this guy giving you a problem? And they're immediately thinking, like, black guy yelling at a white guy, something's not right here. And Sam's like, everything's fine, officer. Like, you can go. Like, this doesn't have anything to do with anything but the two of us. And, like, we're fine. And Bucky kind of tries to interject, and they're both like, he's like, calm down. And you can see, like, another car pulling up on him. And Bucky's like, everything's fine. Do you not know who he is? And it's at that moment that the cop, it's the reverse, right? Or that's very similar, actually, to, not the reverse, but exactly what we see at the bank, right? Where, like, the bank guy is like, well, I guess it's reverse in the sense that, like, Sam has to make, oh, I know who you are. You're the Falcon. Yeah, I thought I knew you from somewhere. Cool, take a picture. Wait, you got, like, issues money-wise? Oh, I'm sorry. You're a black man in the U.S.? I can't help you out. Here, these guys don't know, so they're coming at him like just a regular old, person on the street that happens to not be white, arguing with a white guy. Something's not right here. And then it's you don't know who, oh my gosh, we are so sorry, you're the Falcon. I didn't recognize you without the goggles. Like, immediate to the apology. And it's like, it's fascinating to watch them dealing with this stuff. And then, like, the kicker is, as they're like, shoot, we screwed up, like, my bad, guy. Let me take care of this. And, like, they go to talk to the cops that are coming up, right? Like, we're going to de-escalate that situation. But while they're doing that, I guess one of them must be running things, and they come back and they go, actually, Mr. Barnes, we're going to have to take you to jail now because you just broke, basically, like, your probation. Like, you didn't go to your therapy session, and there's a warrant out for your arrest. So you go through that whole thing, and who ends up getting arrested? But the white guy. And then, we jump to the police station, and Sam isn't even able to get Bucky out right away. We see his doctor come in, and he's like, thank you so much for getting, Bucky out. She's like, I didn't do it. And then you turn, and he's like, well, who did? She's like, and frickin' John Walker, Captain America, like, hey, it's me. And again, when you were talking about the little things that keep popping up in the episode that just point out the fact that he's not the right guy. Like, yes, we saw Cap with a beard, and I think we all love bearded Cap, but that happened when he was no longer Captain America, right? Like, he was on the run. And here's the guy who's supposed to be Captain America. He's got all this stubble and scruff on his face, and you're like, bro, shave. Like, that, you know what I mean? Like, again, just one of those things that just kind of makes him, like, Cap would have, I don't care if you shaved in the morning and that's how much stubble you grow. Cap would have had a razor on him, man, because, like, anytime he's in that suit, he'd be clean cut, shaven Captain America. So like again, there's the little things that they're doing. Basically, you find out Walker pulled the strings, and he goes to the doctor. He's like, oh, and by the way, like Bucky ain't gonna be able to follow any kind of schedule or anything like that anymore because I need him. And, I need him. I'm the government. So I pulled some strings. So now he's my guy. So, like, you do whatever you got to do, but he ain't going to be coming on a regular schedule anymore. And you're just like, now you're like, all right, now I understand that you're a person and you have a background, but now you just keep doing things that are rubbing me the wrong way, man. I do not like this fake Captain America, dude. Like, there's just something about him where I'm like, nah, not my guy. So that Bucky comes out, and immediately Doctor's like, yeah, well, you missed your session. We're going to have your session right now. Let's go. She's like, Sam, you're coming too. Sam's like, I don't want to do this. And this is that scene that I mentioned in my non-spoiler where it was like, I was enjoying this scene when it was happening, but I was like, I feel like we got more important things that should be happening right now at the point of this episode. Like, as many good things as I've seen and pointed out talking about this whole episode, the placement of this like obviously makes sense in the context of this telling, but having it happen right at the end, right after we had this whole Isaiah Bradley thing, it just kind of threw me off. That being said, it's an absolutely wonderful scene. I mean, we have Sam and Bucky basically about to have a couples counseling session. And the doctor is trying a couple things like, she's basically like, look, I gotta make sure that he's okay, and since you're here, I'm gonna make sure you're okay, and we're gonna get everybody on the same page. Let's try doing this. So she tries a couple different things. First is like, if there was a miracle it's like the miracle day or something like that. Basically, if like a miracle happened, what would your miracle be? And I think Bucky makes like an off-brand joke like about his miracle, having to be with like Sam not being around or something like that. He makes like some kind of joke, and Sam's about to like, all right, let's change this. Let's do the eye gaze thing. And basically that's where like you just look at each other and then say what's wrong or what's bothering you. And like this time Buggy's like, yeah, that's a great idea. And Sam's like, I don't want to do this. And they turn, she's like, okay, now get closer. They get closer, and then she's like, get closer, and they're like, our knees are touching, and she's like, get closer, and Sam's just like, would you put like a couple they're like arguing like a married couple, man. And he like just pulls them in and like, this is real close. But like get locked in and they look. And this is the first point where you really get to see behind that curtain a little bit on Bucky, where it's like the things that have been bothering him all episode. When he came in hot on Sam early on, later on in the episode, like somewhere in the middle, where he says something, and all of those things were just building to this moment where it's like, address the situation. What's really bothering you? And he's like, why did you give up the shield? And like Sam immediately is like, again with this thing, he's like, I don't understand how you give up that shield. Like that was Steve's shield, that's his legacy, and you just gave it up. And Sam is like, look, flat out, I get it, man. And do you think it makes me happy to see that guy running around with the shield? No. But did you ever think at all, I don't know, maybe you just don't get this, but like, maybe I did what I thought was the right thing to do. Like, I didn't think the mantle needed to be carried on. And I mean, he's not saying this, but what he's saying is like, being the hero is what matters. I didn't think having to be that hero what was the thing. And like, what I did was what was right for me, man. That was Steve's, and I wanted that legacy to be preserved and put somewhere where everybody could appreciate it, and I could go be my own character. Clearly, that's not what they did. So, you know what? I'm willing to just squash all this right now. If we can and this is where Sam, says, we got more important shit than this to do right now. So I'll squash all this. We go out there, we do what we gotta do, and we get to the end of it, we take real long vacations where we're nowhere near each other. Basically, we're gonna buck up, and no pun intended, and get through this mission, and when this mission's over, we can go our separate ways. And they're like, cool, and he's like, great, good talk, see you out there. Slides out and goes out. And just the way that he responds to Bucky, and the way Sebastian Stan, again, with his eyes and just his facial expression, you can tell that piece of the conversation hit Bucky. And the doctor notices that too. She's like, James, are you okay? And he's like, fine, whatever. So what's bothering you? He stops and he turns and he's like, what's rule number 2? She's like, you can't hurt anybody. And he's like, good night, Doc. And basically, says, I'm not supposed to hurt anybody. And everything that I've done this whole episode has hurt that guy. And like when they get outside, Sam again is ready to just focus up on the mission. And, he's like, yeah, that was great. And Bucky is like, yeah, I feel like shit. Like, I feel like a dick. And, like, you can tell, like, he is someone who is in the process of changing. And he is trying to be more in tune with his feelings and what his actions mean to people outside of him. And that's the thing that's really important about that scene. While it's funny to watch Mackie and Stan have the back and back and to do the couples counseling bit and get this buddy cop element of the show really working, it really kind of just shows, like, what I took away from this is that I hurt Sam. And deep down, like, Bucky cares about him as much as he cares about that shield. And the way he's been going at it has been all about the shield and Steve and not what's going on inside Sam's head and how Sam's dealing with these things. And I love that. And again, it's like this genius bit of writing that they're delivering in just like this real small snippet that you can really break down and get into like what's actually happening. And when you see all these little shortcuts and tricks to keep things tight, it's like just send some of that tightness over there and give me more to add here. Because as we get outside, all of a sudden you hear like the cop sirens go off and they turn and there's fake Captain America and that Hoskins guy just sitting up on a couple cop cars. And again, just adding to the fact that I don't like this guy. Yeah, a bunch of cops walking back into the police station. And these two guys, would you ever see Captain America just chilling on a police officer's car or messing with the lights and the sirens? It just rubbed me the wrong way. And they go over and they try to have, another conversation. And, he's basically like, look, I get it, y'all don't like me, whatever. But if you look at the mission and what we need to accomplish, it's only going to be better if we work together. And you see Bucky's still, like, not into it. And Sam is kind of the more accepting to a degree. He's like, all right, what do we need to do here? What do you got? And, this is where, now for the first time out loud, someone says, the leader of the Flag Smashers is this girl, Carly Morgenthau. And she's the one that's setting up all these things, and they have places to stay. We've been following like civilian leads that kind of link to them. And, if we're going to go after them, we really need to be together. And, it seems like she's going to take these meds and distribute them to like these camp locations or whatever. And, Bucky's like not into it, and Sam is like, I get it, man, but here's the deal. Like, you guys, have all these resources and, work with the government. That's cool, but you got to follow rules. He's like, we're free agents. We can move around. We're a lot more flexible, and because of that, we shouldn't work together. And then you just get this shot of, like, Walker being like, okay, that's fine. Go off. Run away, boys. But just know this. Stay out of my way. And just the way he said it, I was like, oh, we're going to make him the bad guy, even though he's not necessarily the bad guy. Like, he is going to keep... we got two separate teams going after the same people. And, like you could see where Walker is going to be the bad guy or antagonist to these two if they're trying to figure out the case or they're getting in his way. So, I just the way that... Russell delivers that line, you're like, oh, they're going to continue to butt heads. And I like that, because the more I just look at this guy, I don't want to root for him. I don't want to like him. So give me things that are going to rub these guys the wrong way so I can be with them and be like, yeah, I don't like this guy. Even if what he's doing isn't necessarily evil or bad, like he's same goal, just I don't like him very much. And I'm telling you, man, I love bearded Wyatt Russell. This clean-shaven Wyatt Russell is not working for me, man. I don't know if that's part of the idea, right? Like, to just, like, rub you the wrong way. But, like, I've always kind of dug Wyatt Russell when he turns up and things. And he's doing a real good job of, like, grinding my gears, man. And to his credit, that stuff is awesome. And I'll look forward to seeing that. But if you're going to have two teams going after the same thing and we're going to end up spending time with John Walker and Lamar Hoskins, you better build out these episodes a little bit bigger. But before we finish, we get one last little bit of thing, man. Like, one of my complaints is, like, we ain't got no Zemo. It's like they threw it in here just to be like, well, you can't say that the second episode didn't give you Zemo, because it did, even if it was just, like, 5 seconds of Zemo. But, like, they're outside, and they're talking, and Bucky and Sam are walking away, and Buck's like, brings up like when Isiah said like your people, and Sam's like, dude, I don't think that's how he meant that. Like in prison, these like white people were coming after him. I don't think. He's like, no, my people are Hydra. Like, how are we gonna figure out where the super soldier serum is? The tip that Isiah basically give us saying that is Hydra. Hydra is the way to look. If Hydra is tied to this in any way of super soldier serum getting out, there's only one place we can go. And Sam's like, you're not serious, man. Like, we're gonna, like, that guy, like, you know what that guy did, right? Like, and Bucky's like, that's where we have to go. And Sam's like, all right, we're going to see Zemo. And then you get this wonderful, like, Eastern European classical music building. I think it's the same music, or at least similar music to what they gave Zemo in Civil War. But, like, you got this building to, like, this just eerie, like, you can tell he's a bad guy, and, like, you're going to the place where he's at, and, like, you can see him on the camera, and he's just kind of sitting there, and the camera eventually comes in here, and you're just like, there's Zemo, he's got a little scruff on his face, and you're like, oh, next episode is like, Sam said it in this one, man, he's like, we got important shit to do, so I'll squash this whole beef. I'm hoping it was, like, one of those, like, we're breaking the fourth wall, kind of having a multiple conversation, but, like, I hope what Sam was saying was Marvel saying to us, we got more important stuff to do than this. I get it. So, you know what? I'll squash the fact that, like, we've had 2 episodes that could have been 1 episode, and we got more important things to do, so if you let me squash it right here, right now, going forward, big, bad, all the things that we want. So if you don't get me, I mean, we are definitely going to get Zemo next episode because you're going to get the boys talking to him. But if you don't give me Zemo getting out next episode, you don't bring in Sharon Carter, like, I don't know, man. We're running out. We only got 4 episodes left, and I feel like we got a lot to do. Even though they have accomplished a lot inside these 2 episodes, it feels like there's so much more at stake and so much more to do and build, and I can't wait to see where we're going. Because even though I feel like we needed a little bit more this episode, gosh, they certainly gave us a lot. And now, like, they give us so much packed into these tiny episodes, man. It's absolutely crazy. But as you can see, I've kind of won myself over to this episode because there's some cool stuff. And I mean, just introducing, U.S. Agent, Battlestar, like the actual Flag Smasher, and Isaiah Bradley with the potential of Elijah Bradley, like, that in and of itself being done in the episode is amazing. Yet, like, when you look at that, and the development that you get for these 2 characters, or the things that are going around this episode, is really good. But their core story, I feel like we're lacking on a little bit. And actually, I skipped. There's something that happens in between them walking away and saying we're going to go get Zemo, and that is the Flag Smashers' quick little getaway scene. Basically, they're loading up all the vaccines onto a plane, and as they're getting ready to take off, you can see cars are coming, like somebody clearly, like alerted somebody to, like, their presence. So this one guy goes to Carly, like, I'll hold him off, man. I'll give you guys time to get away. And she gets very emotional. It's the only reason really to bring this moment up. I don't know if that's her brother, or if that's a relative, or a close friend, or a lover, or what that is, but there is some sort of connection between those 2 that's much deeper than just, like, another guy in her organization, because she is emotionally impacted by that. You see the tear roll down her face as they're starting to get away, as he runs out there as a super soldier to take on all these cops. Man, he knocks over a telephone pole, and he just runs and gets lit up. But right before he goes away, the other thing too that I liked with this whole sequence was he goes the mantra of the Flag Smashers: one world, one people. And again, that's one of those things where it's like, you take a mantra like that, that's easy to deliver to people. One world, one people. Who can't get behind that? Then you use it for the things you're using it for, and then you end up with a terrorist group. So that, and then after that, that's when Sam and Bucky are like, we're going to go talk to Zemo, and we get to see Zemo. But, like, so much good stuff inside this little 38 minute episode. I don't know how they pack it all in and do it so sophisticatedly. Like, the writing is so sophisticated in the way in which they're telling the story. I want more of it. Give me more. Give me more and give it to me now, Marvels. There you go, man. Those are all the Seaman's extremely long-winded thoughts on The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 2, The Star-Spangled Man. I dug the episode. I think you could probably give a little bit more. I think maybe some people will be wanting a little bit more, but when you dive into this bad boy, they certainly do give you a lot, and a lot of really good stuff in what we get. So we'll see how we do next week. Hopefully the action is bigger and crazier, and the main storyline, like we really start to flesh out some things that are going on that are going to set up the end of this show, because I don't know right now. I feel like we need a little bit more there, so hopefully we get that next week. But so far, 2 episodes in, the content they've given us has been very good. Now I just hope the very good content that we hopefully continue to get just bolsters itself and makes it a little bit bigger, so we can make sure we flesh this story out completely. So those are all my spoiler thoughts on The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 2, The Star-Spangled Man. Now I want to know what you're thinking, man. What did you take away from this episode? Are you a comic book nerd? Did you pick up on all the little things that they were dropping in this episode, both from the cinematic universe, from the comic universe? What did you think of the 4 characters that were all introduced? Maybe 5 characters, if we think Elijah Bradley was the kid who opened the door. But what are you thinking there? And then if you're not a comic book reader, or someone who deep dives into the cinematic universe on stuff, what was your takeaway on this episode? What were the things that worked for you? What were the moments that you liked? And did it feel like it was lacking because maybe you didn't pick up on the fact that, like, the first Black Captain America showed up in this episode, or that, Carly Morgenthau is, very, very close to Carl Morgenthau. Like, maybe that there's a lineage being tied in there in some way. Maybe Flag Smasher was a villain back in the day. And that, like, what do you think is going on there? Anything you're thinking, man. Good, bad, indifferent about The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Episode number 2 goes down below in the comment section. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the old Seaman anytime, we are exhaustively talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, just TV, movies, trailer breakdowns, reactions, all those good things, man. You want to be here for it. You haven't yet. You want to show a little love, support the old Seaman. Why don't you jump over there, man? Join the Seamaniac Nation by hitting that subscribe button. Hit that little bell if you want those alerts. Until next time, for the Seamaniacs Cinema, sit down. I've been the Seaman, and I am signing off. Peace. Oh, hey, what's going on? You must be sticking around because you're looking for more content featuring this guy. Well, guess what? You're in the right place. You can check out more videos right here and right here. And if you have and you want to come join that Seamaniac Nation, you can hit that subscribe right over there.